Marisha, man. Rest in peace, 07. But if I'm wrong, I'll be pretty genuinely disappointed. We should not be surprised if Laudna is somehow used in Matt Mercer's evil plans in the future. See, the Critical Role fanbase is extremely divisive at times. Her magic, her crazy ruinous magic is causing a storm, a sandstorm. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Fraud on the Telly. In today's video, we're breaking down everything that happened in Critical Role Campaign 3, Episode 34. An episode in which we learned super important details about a variety member of the cast's backstories. As well, the cast were forced to make a horrible choice. Who lives and who dies? If you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you cast Revivify on that like button. But once you bring it back to 1 hit point, use your bonus action to make an offhand attack and smack it over the head and knock it out. As well, don't forget to subscribe and hit that tiny bell to never miss a video. Don't forget to check out some of our other Critical Role content, and let's get right into it, shall we? So our episode begins in the nuclear bomb that is Imogen's ruinous powers. Apparently, the psychic energy in this storm is enough to have ourselves a bit of a backstory episode as we start having a bunch of flashbacks. Matt describes the psychic storm as kind of ripping through their psyche, bringing memories that had either been lost, forgotten, or suppressed back into their mind. Chetney has a flash of a couple of people with him. I believe Matt uses the name Fidel in Diana as he describes them. He then describes Chetney having this hunger inside of him going outside, seeing the bright red moon of Ruidus, a beam of energy or light, Matt says, comes from the moon hitting Chetney in the chest. This is presumably when I believe he becomes a werewolf for the first time, is my only guess, as he describes Chetney kind of giving into his werewolfness. Now, obviously, there's a ton that we don't know about Chetney's backstory because Travis is keeping it super close to his chest, so we really don't know what's going on here. Maybe this was his family. Maybe Chetney killed these people when he went wolf. Who knows? I think the most important thing to confirm is that Chetney has a very, very intrinsic important link here, it seems, with Ruidus, which we'll come to touch on later. Next, we move on to Laudna, who has memories of her parents in Whitestone, ultimately leading up to the day that the Briarwoods took her and they had the dinner, obviously before she was killed and hung from the sun tree. During this flashback, it's almost as if Delilah's memories or thoughts intermingle inside of Delilah's mind as Matt shouts out, "You are my vessel, I will endure." Now, I was sitting here listening to this and wondering, is this Delilah talking or is this Vecna almost? It's really hard to know with Delilah and Matt and Vecna stuff, as we know that Delilah is obviously super interlinked with Vecna in the events of Campaign 1, so it does make me wonder if Delilah's greater motives, besides just becoming alive again and possibly raising her husband from the dead, which I would imagine are her #1 priorities, is she still somehow under Vecna's control or under his influence? Maybe we'll find out more in coming episodes, possibly. Next, we move to Imogen, who has a flashback with her mother. Everything's fine and dandy until all of a sudden there is a storm swirling around her. She realizes that this is not a dream anymore, basically. This is her current existence, as her magic, her crazy Ruidus magic, is causing a storm, a sandstorm interlinked with the Ruidus magic to just whip around her, and before her is Otahan. Otahan looks to her saying, good, praising Imogen for releasing this power, for giving in to her Ruidus-born nature, I would guess, saying you are a true predator, a gift in their image. Now, their here most likely refers to the gods that are trapped in the moon. And if it does, that's scary, man, because we already knew that their intentions probably weren't good, judging from Otahan and all of her craziness. But if last episode didn't confirm with Otahan talking about culling people, this seems to very much confirm that those gods in the moon, or whatever is going on there, is not good business. Not good at all. Suddenly, Imogen hears her mom's voice ring in her head again, telling her to run. Now, I thought this scene was freaking awesome because this is her dream manifested. Imogen's basically been having this exact dream of Otahan appearing before her with a huge army of like cloaked figures spread out behind her, swirling in this crazy red storm. This is basically what happens here. And then she hears her mother saying, run. I know it's more symbolic than actually literal. That's what I'm trying to say here. This was really cool. Really cool scene. I liked this. Otahan implores Imogen to come with her. Come make something beautiful with us, she said, as obviously she wants Imogen as her crazy, like, Sith apprentice to go out and, I guess, hold everyone. According to her, Imogen obviously refuses. There's a massive, basically, nuke that goes on in Bassaras. If you watched some of our other videos that we've been putting out this week, like our theory videos, I basically kind of predicted this. A huge nuke goes off. Otahan's nowhere to be seen. A huge chunk of the city of Bassaras is absolutely destroyed, and all the party come to with Fearne, Orym, dead, and at this point, Laudna is rolling death saves. We get snapped back into reality as all of a sudden we are back in initiative order because people are dying. The turn order comes over to Laudna, who, of course, poor Marisha, man. Can we just have a moment of silence for our queen right now? No, not that queen. I'm talking about this queen. Of course, she rolls a 1 on her death save, having already 2 failures. Auto double failure, and Laudna dies. Turn order comes around to Sam as FCG. I really appreciate Sam here. Sam was doing his best not to meta anything and trying to play it his best to his knowledge as his character, as the play here is to revive Ashley because she also has the spell Revivify, but the question is, does my character FCG know all of this information? They eventually decide that they do. I appreciate still that Sam thought about this. This is nice. Most people wouldn't do this. They would just do the meta thing, which is fair. I don't blame people for doing this. Fearne gets revived. It's super emotional. I love this character. Glad to see Fearne alive. The cast then get put in a super, super awkward, tough decision where as characters, they have to decide between saving Orym or Laudna, because they only have 1 Revivify left, and they're running out of precious time, as they only have so much time before they can revive them. Eventually, they flip a coin, the Changebringer coin, which is good character development for FCG. Very curious to see what happens there, because I've theorized in the past that I think FCG is a cleric of the Luxum, but maybe he's not, and maybe he can actually form an attachment to some god. Very interesting. We'll just have to wait and see. Orym gets brought back, leaving Laudna perma-dead for now, as Marisha leaves the table for one of the first times, I think, in Critical Role history. This show is super rough. I don't wish this upon anyone, whether from a character perspective or from your friend's perspective. It's not fun. Obviously, it's just a story that they're telling here, but it's not fun to do, and I think they did a really good job doing it respectfully, and from a character's point of view, I appreciate them not trying to metagame anything, ultimately deciding that, I guess, Laudna's relationship with death, the fact that she has been revived once, she's a hollowed one after all, she is kind of an undead creature, possibly something could happen for her later on in the future. Not a fun decision to make. Very hard. Ultimately, though, it is funny because we talked about this in one of the last videos we put out where we went over the percentage chances on what exactly was going to play out. This is basically statistically what was most likely to happen. I think it was like something like a 45% chance that Laudna was going to die from death saves. Unfortunately, she rolled a 1. Which made it very hard. But then obviously we knew that then they were going to be put in a position where they were going to have to decide between one or the other. Ultimately, the party managed to scamper off, escaping into Bassaras, hiding in Imahara Joe's basement where nothing of super important happened. Oh yeah, Sam in a super clutch move casts Gentle Repose on Laudna's body, which would keep her body from decomposing over long periods of time, making it more possible for them to resurrect her or giving them more time. But then Matt says, hey, it's good that you did that because you noticed that you stopped something that was beginning to take hold. Now, Gentle Repose prevents the dead creature from becoming undead for a certain amount of time. My guess as to what was happening here was that Delilah was trying to zombify the body to come back. We know that Delilah is a super powerful necromancer who is inside Laudna's head, connected to Laudna some way as far as in the living world. So that's my guess. We don't know for sure, but that's my guess there. They get on the airship and dip right out of there with Treshy, mission accomplished, presumably going back. Job well done. Ultimately, the cast seemed pretty set in character on bringing Laudna back to life, but I have my doubts. I think that this could go one of a few ways. Ultimately, this is really down to Matt and I guess Marisha on what they decide to do. But I really don't see Matt allowing Laudna to come back easily. I feel like if Laudna comes back as a player character, I'm gonna make that point specifically, it's gonna be a long-term thing. I think that Marisha will probably play a stopgap character in between. Now, this is just my guess, but that's really how Matt has kind of functioned. I know a lot of people were saying, well, they're going to contact Keyleth because Orym made mention of it in character. I would be pretty shocked and honestly a little upset if in the next episode or two, Keyleth just makes an appearance and just snaps her fingers and solves all the problems. Critical Role's never really done anything like this over the course of all the campaigns so far. This would be super out of left field for them to do. It wouldn't feel good. I don't even think as the cast, if that happened, like that would feel good for them either. So I don't see that. Matt's done a really good job, in my opinion, of kind of keeping the campaign's narrative separate while interlinking it into the same world, right? But not allowing links to past campaigns to come and just solve the problems of the current ones. Ultimately, this is just my opinion, but from watching years of Critical Role now, I would be shocked if something like this happened. I would also venture to believe that Matt possibly could bring her back as an antagonist at some point. This seems only likely. I mean, we saw what happened with Lucian in Campaign 2. We already know that something was happening to Laudna's body that FCG stopped with Gentle Repose, most likely being Delilah's Works, who is a huge necromancer, who is an acolyte of Vecna, who is a big, bad, evil character. We should not be surprised if Laudna is somehow used in Matt Mercer's evil plans in the future. Don't let this shock you. If anything, I would say this is more than likely. It's really hard to know. Personally, I think Marisha will play a stopgap character or a brand new character until maybe the Laudna story gets an appropriate time to come back up again, because I know that they want Laudna back really bad. I want Laudna back bad too. Laudna is a hilarious character. She will be missed. Rest in peace, 07. If they do decide to bring her back, it will be, in my opinion, with really good narrative reasons and explanations in the world. It won't just be a cheap thing that happens. It will be something that is earned, and it will be something that takes time to do. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm wrong, I'll be pretty genuinely disappointed. It's funny because this opinion right here brings up a really interesting, funny thing about the Critical Role fan base. See, the Critical Role fan base is extremely divisive at times. Now, let me make this clear. This is true of kind of any fan base when it reaches a certain size, and it's also very much the minorities of the Critical Role fan base, which for a large part is amazing. But it is really funny to me how, for a lot of people, it's either you can't criticize this show at all, or all I do is criticize the show. I'm a fan. I like the show. I like the people behind the show. But at the end of the day, while it is their game, it is a public show. They are public figures. We can criticize them, guys. It's okay. They make a lot of money from this show, which I think they deserve. So they can take some criticism every now and then. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people in this camp over here who just say a lot of dumb, non-constructive criticism. They can do that. They're entitled to their opinion, but we can just ignore them, all right? And as far as for people over here, look, I get that you like Critical Role. I like it too, man. But when I see comments like this one where it says you should feel privileged that they're even sharing the show with us, I'm like, okay, now that's a little bit overboard. This show has completely changed their lives. Let's not act like, we haven't done something good for them as an audience and we aren't allowed to criticize it. Maybe I'll make a video about this topic in the future. Overall, the Critical Role fan base is amazing. This is a very small minority of people who are vocal on the internet, and we know how people on the internet are. If you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think is going to happen with Laudna? Would you be disappointed if Laudna was brought back to life? Or if Laudna was brought back to life, how would you like to see it done? Ultimately, everyone plays D&D different, and it's all valid. It's all okay. It's okay to disagree with it. It's okay to do things differently. So just take a breath and enjoy the content for what it is. Rest in peace, Laudna. You are my favorite dead girl. And as always, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Peace, love. Adu.